ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ते भूरिता जनाः. O Lord, your words, like sweet nectar, refresh the afflicted. Your words, which poets have sung in verses, vanquish the sins of the worldly. Blessed are they who hear of you, and blessed indeed are they who speak of you. How great is their reward. So we are continuing with the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, chapter 18, and the entry for 2nd January 1884. The last time we did this, we read how that Sri Ramakrishna was talking with a tantric, a follower of the tantric discipline. Now, after he left, after the tantric devotee left, he started talking with a Brahma devotee. We read part of the entry here. After the tantric devotee had taken his leave, Jayagopal Sen, a member of the Brahma Samaj, arrived. The master talked with him. Master to Jayagopal, one should not harbor malice toward any person or any opinion. The believers in the formless God and the worshippers of God with form are all, without exception, going toward God alone. The jnani, the yogi, the bhakta, all, without exception, are seeking Him alone. The follower of the path of knowledge calls Him Brahman. The yogi calls Him Atman or Paramatman. The bhakta calls Him Bhagavan. Further, it is said that there is the eternal Lord and His eternal servant. So, Sri Ramakrishna had followed all the different paths. Usually, a sage or a saint can realize maybe in one lifetime one single aspect of God in his lifetime, in her or her lifetime, and the ordinary seeker may take many lives' time to realize even one aspect. But Sri Ramakrishna, in a matter of days, realized that the goal of the particular path he was following. So we can see from his, when we study his life, that he had followed the path of Shaktas, that's Divine Mother, Goddess Mother, Vaishnavas, Shaivas, Vedantins, then Islam, Christian. So all the people, all followers of all these different faiths felt that he is following their path. And then came the Brahmos. Here we are talking about Jayagopal Sen. He is a Brahmo. The Brahmo Samaj was a reform movement started in 1828 by Ram Mohan Roy. And it's a reform movement reforming the Hindu tradition, which had accumulated a lot of superstition and outdated practices. So Brahma Samaj was started with that, and also with more of social reforms also. And their idea of God is they believe in God without form, but attributes. God is kind, compassionate, all that, but they don't believe in God with form. But when all these people came to Sri Ramakrishna, and everybody was welcome there. He didn't follow any one particular path. Everybody was happy and welcome there. All sincere seekers received Sri Ramakrishna's advice and grace. And if he found that any particular sincere seeker is a bit narrow-minded, thinking that their path is the only correct one, then he tried to remove that. We can, if the person is not sincere, Sri Ramakrishna did not waste his time or energy on those people. We can see in the gospel, he say, asking them, people who are not much interested in spiritual life, just coming out of curiosity, hearing that, oh, there is a Paramahamsa, or later the leader of the Brahma Samaj, Keshavendra Sen, he used to speak about Sri Ramakrishna from his pulpit, and also he used to write about Sri Ramakrishna. So many of the followers of Keshav came to see him. Some of them are sincerely trying to practice lead a spiritual life. Some of them came just out of curiosity. And to such people, he would say, oh, go and see the beautiful temple or take a walk in the garden. However important a person may be, if there's not a sincere person, Sri Ramakrishna didn't bother to talk with that person. One example you can see, a great, famous person, Michael Madhusudan Dutt. He was a lawyer, and he was the lawyer of the proprietors, Rani Rasmani, and he had come to the temple to deal about some court case for problem to discuss with the proprietors. And then they talked about Sri Ramakrishna, so he wanted to meet Sri Ramakrishna. So he came to Sri Ramakrishna's room, and he talked for some time, but Sri Ramakrishna could not say anything. He just listened to what Michael Madhusudan Dutt had to say. And there was another person who was living with Sri Ramakrishna at that time, an aspirant called Narayan Shastri. Narayan Shastri asked why Madhusudan Dutt became a Christian. He became a Christian when he was living in England. And Madhusudan Dutt said, for the sake of stomach, just to get money. And that put this aspirant Narayan Shastri off. And that shows that he was not really became a Christian not because he loved Jesus or Christianity, but just for personal outcome or personal benefit. So he's not a sincere spiritual aspirant. So Sri Ramakrishna could not talk anything. He said, it seems as though somebody is closing my mouth. He could not talk. And when Madhusudan Dutt expressed his disappointment that Sri Ramakrishna could not give him any advice, just to comfort him afterwards, Sri Ramakrishna sang few songs giving some the form of advice. But if you are a sincere seeker, whatever be the time of the day, however his health condition, he was always ready to help the person. So that is why here Sri Ramakrishna is telling Jayagopal Sen, because he's a sincere person, he's saying one should not harbor malice toward any person or any opinion. The people have different opinion. According to their understanding, they think of God in different ways. Don't think that what you believe is the only correct way. Let the others have their own opinion. And if you're sincere, you'll reach the same goal. That's why he's saying the believers in formless God and the worshippers of God with form are all, without exception, going toward God alone. They may be calling him by different names. Like the followers of the path of knowledge describe that entity as Brahman. The yogi describes the same entity as Atman or Paramatman, whereas the devotee calls Bhagavan, God. Jayagopal. How can we know that all paths are true? Master. A man can reach God if he follows one path rightly. Then he can learn about all the other paths. It is like reaching the roof by some means or other. Then one is able to climb down by the wooden or stone stairs, or by a bamboo pole, or even by a rope. A devotee can know everything when God's grace descends on him. If you but realize him, you will be able to know all about him. Jayagopal, how does one receive God's grace? So first question Jayagopal's doubt is, how do you know that all paths are true? We are going along only one path. So Sri Ramakrishna says, a man can reach God if you follow any one path correctly, with sincerity, with earnestness. If you follow one path, any path, you will reach God. And once you reach God, then you will realize all paths are true. You climbed a hill or a mountain along one route. Once you reach the top, once you reach the summit, then you can see that all the different routes, all the different paths, all lead to the summit only. Or we can reach the top of the hill through different paths. There's no harm, there is no difficulty. All these paths lead to the root, the top of the mountain only. A devotee can know everything when God's grace descends on him. If you but realize him, you will be able to know all about him. If you realize God, then you can know everything about God. Jayagopal, how does one receive God's grace? That's the big question. How does one receive God's grace? Master, constantly you have to chant the name and glories of God and give up worldly thoughts as much as you can. Constantly you have to chant the name and glories of God and give up worldly thoughts as much as you can. With the greatest effort, you may try to bring water into your field for your crops, but it may all leak out through holes in the ridges. Then all your efforts to bring the water by digging a canal will be futile. See, Sri Ramakrishna's examples are all taken from daily life. He grew up in a village, so he has seen how the farmers dig the canal to bring water to their fields. But the water is leaking out through small holes in the ridges. If the holes are removed or the stop completely, if you make the ridge in such a way that there's no holes, then the water will remain. Otherwise, you're working hard to bring in the water, but all the water is leaking out. So Sri Ramakrishna is talking about like that, how to receive God's grace. We have to chant the name and glories of God and give up worldly thoughts as much as you can. You are chanting the name of and glories of God, you are meditating, you are praying, but you have got worldly thoughts. They are the holes through which all the practices that you have done is leaking out. Then what's the point of doing all this, chanting the name and glories of God? That purifies the mind. So grace of God is a very important matter or aspect or important topic in spiritual life. Shankaracharya says we have already received God's grace. According to Shankaracharya, three things are due to the grace of God: a human life, human birth, desire for liberation, and the blessings of the great soul. Manishyatam, Mumukshutvam, Mahapurusha Samshraya. These three. First one is a human birth. Unless we have got grace of God, you would not get a human body. We take the human body just for granted, as though it's a most, we don't take it so seriously. But think about the amount of, or the number of living beings in the universe. Among that, human beings is a small fraction. So human bodies, after how many thousands of lives through other bodies, at last we have got a human body. And the human body, the human birth is the acme of evolution. We have got the intellect, the reasoning power, which other beings, other animals, and other beings don't have. Swami Vivekananda says, this human body is the greatest body in the universe, and a human being, the greatest being. Man is higher than all animals, than all angels. None is greater than man. So it's not a simple thing to get a human body. And then after having obtained this rare human body, if we don't try to realize God or realize our true nature, Shankaracharya says we are committing spiritual suicide. Not physical suicide, that's nothing, but we are committing spiritual suicide. So through God's grace, we have got this, but that is only a small capital to start our spiritual journey or spiritual work. We have to work on that with start with a spiritual small capital and work and make it increasing, or just a small spark. We have to feed that small spark and make it into a huge fire. If we just ignore it, it will just die out. Through God's grace, we have got this human body. If you don't try for self-knowledge, for freedom, we are no better than animals. So what the practice of spiritual disciplines like japa, the repetition of God's name, chanting God's name and glories, meditation, prayer, all these are practices that we are supposed to do, but they don't give us God realization. They say that Holy Mother was once asked by a devotee, by doing japa and meditation, spiritual practices, prayer, they will help me to realize God? Holy Mother said, no. They won't help you. They won't lead to God realization, but you have to do them just to purify your mind. You purify through these practices, your mind is purified. And when the mind is pure, then God's grace will descend. God realization or self-realization happens only through God's grace. And all the spiritual practices that we are doing is just to purify our mind so that we can receive God's grace. And what are the impurities in our mind? Ignorance and also desires. So a lot of selfish worldly desires, egotism, pride, arrogance, vanity, all these are there in our mind. We have to remove all these things. They are like heavy loads. Going forward in the spiritual path is very difficult with such heavy loads. We have the advice when we travel light. Now we are not traveling, but otherwise they always say travel light. Don't take too many luggage. So on this spiritual path also, when we are to travel, we have to travel light. So get rid of this unwanted luggage of egotism, pride, arrogance, and all selfish desires. They don't help in the spiritual path. With all that, if you trying on the spiritual path, you may be doing all the works, but you are not making any progress. It's like rowing the boat without lifting the anchor. Sri Ramakrishna gives us a story. A few friends, 3 or 4 friends, got really drunk at night, and then they came near the river. They found a boat there. Oh, let's go for a ride on the boat. Let's have a pleasure trip. So they got onto the boat and started rowing. The whole night they rowed. In the morning, they became a bit sober and found that they were still in the same spot because they haven't lifted the anchor. With all these worldly desires and pride, arrogance, etc., we are doing spiritual practices. It's like rowing the boat without lifting the anchor. We are not making any progress. We won't be able to make any progress. All these spiritual practices make us worthy to receive God's grace. Otherwise, even if God's grace is always flowing, always there, Sri Ramakrishna says the breeze of God's grace is always blowing. If you unfurl your sail, you can catch the breeze and go forward. But the lazy sailors who don't unfurl the sail, they don't catch the breeze. Those who don't do the spiritual practices, they don't get they are not able to take advantage of the grace of God. Just to give 2 examples of becoming grace-worthy. Those who have read the life of Swami Vivekananda knows that how Narendra was going as a young Narendra after when his father suddenly passed away. The family was going through extremely difficult situation at that time financially. They were almost starving. And one day Narendra came to Sri Ramakrishna asking for his help. Sri Ramakrishna said, you go and pray to Mother Kali. And evening you go, Mother will give you whatever you ask for. Narendra's heart was pure. He had done so much of practices, spiritual disciplines. His mind was extremely pure. He was ready to receive the Divine Mother's grace. And he went and asked her, Mother, give me discrimination, knowledge, and renunciation. Another example we see, it's in the life of Holy Mother. Holy Mother was staying in Calcutta, in Udbodhan. There was one man who used to work there for the Udbodhan office. It's the book sales section. They're taking books to the post office and all those things. And also she used to run errands for Holy Mother. His name was Chandra. One day, a few Swamis, including Swami Shuddhananda, a disciple of Swami Vivekananda, was staying there at that time. And they were all going to the Ganges for their bath. Chandra also was with them. So Swami Shuddhananda told Chandra, Chandra, you always go to Holy Mother all the time. You have got free access to her. Why don't you ask Mother to give you God realization? Chandra thought for a second. Can you go and ask her for God realization? He said, oh yes, of course I'll go and ask her. So he straight away turned back and came to the Udbodhan house, went upstairs where Holy Mother is there, and found that Mother is seated for puja. She's doing worship. So he went and entered the room and stood near the door. Mother looked at him and silently, with her questioning look, what do you want? He tried his best to say, give me God realization, but he could not open his mouth. At last he blurted out, Prasad. And Mother pointed to the plate in the corner where they had kept the Prasad. He took the Prasad and came out. He could not ask. He was not graceworthy. His mind was still full of worldly desires. Unless you are graceworthy, you cannot, unless you make our mind pure, we cannot receive God's grace. Holy Mother is ready to give God realization, but we have to be ready. Unless till then we won't be able to receive that. He could not ask. So to receive grace, first we have to put a lot of self-effort. That's the first part. Self-effort, work hard. So we see Jalaluddin Rumi saying, spiritual progress depends on the grace of God. But you must exert yourself also. Do not merely wait for God's grace. Those who do not exert themselves are showing disdain for God. There are people who say, oh, I have surrendered everything to God, everything depends upon God's grace. They are not, their surrender is not real. They are only doing the lip service of surrender, self-surrender. They are lazy. They are tamasic people, inertia. They don't want to do any spiritual practices and they are just waiting for God's grace. Nothing, it won't happen like that. You work hard, you do a lot of spiritual practices, and then doing that, you reach a stage where you realize that by our own effort, we are not able to realize God. Then comes self-surrender. I have done, now I'm ready. Whenever you give me, you show your grace, whatever you give me, I accept. That self-surrender comes after a lot of self-effort. Sri Ramakrishna continues, you will feel restless for God when your heart becomes pure and your mind free from attachment to things of the world. Then alone will your prayer reach God. A telegraph wire cannot carry messages if it has a break or some other defect. I used to cry for God all alone with a longing heart. I used to weep, O God, where art thou? Weeping thus, I would lose all consciousness of the world. My mind would merge in the Mahavine. See, you will feel restless for God when your heart becomes pure and the mind free from attachment to the things of the world. We may wonder why so few people realize God or why there are so few illumined souls. The reason is we are not really eager to realize God. We say, oh, we are devotees or we want to go along the spiritual path, but we are not really hankering for God. We are, that earnestness, the yearning is not there. Very few desire and seek illumination. Or many of the great monks or the Sri Ramakrishna's disciples and others, we see them saying, how much effort do we put to get a university degree? If we put that much effort, Swami Brahmananda jokingly used to tell his young devotees who used to come to him, you put so much effort to get a degree. If you put that much effort, you will realize God. Even less effort, you will realize God. We don't do that. We don't have that intense desire for to get a university degree. How many years of effort? From the beginning, from the time, say, age of 2 or 3, you start studying, starting with the alphabets and everything. And how many hours a day you put, and then you get a degree. And here, few months or few years sitting for meditation, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour in the morning, or those are really keen, half an hour in the evening or 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. And with the mind going all over the world, not concentrating. And still we say, oh, we have been doing spiritual practices, but we haven't realized God. We don't have that much of yearning. So the important thing is to create intense yearning for God, intense desire for God realization. And that can happen through study of scriptures, prayer, etc. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna says, you will feel restless for God when your heart becomes pure. That restlessness, without that restlessness, God realization is not possible. And when with the heart becomes pure and we really feel that we have to realize God, then we see God with see God only, nothing else. That then God realization becomes the only aim in life. This yearning for God is like spiritual hunger. When you are hungry, whatever other occupation or whatever other distractions there is come before you, you will say, let me eat something. First, let me eat something, then I will do this. Or first let me eat something and then I will enjoy that. No, hunger, first you want to satisfy that hunger. On spiritual hunger we should have. Without spiritual hunger, we don't able to do much spiritual practices. And how do we get the spiritual hunger? How do you get this restlessness for God? Simply sitting there, let me have restlessness of God, let me have the yearning, then I'll do practices. No, that also won't happen. We have to do practices like chanting God's name, prayer, meditation, all this you do, and slowly, slowly, we get a taste for God's name. Slowly, the spiritual hunger awakens. And once it has awakened, we have to keep it up. Otherwise, the bit of spiritual hunger that comes, it will just disappear. The momentary enthusiasm won't do, you have to keep it up. So constantly we have to feed the mind with holy thoughts, good ideas, and the spiritual food has to be given. We do feed our body with healthy food. We may try to make our bodies strong with regular exercises. So in our exercises, our recreation, our eating habits, we are regular and methodical. But when it comes to spiritual practices, we don't do that. We do, or sometimes we do, not always. How often do we, those people who have taken initiation, spiritual initiation, often I ask people, do you do your spiritual practices regularly? Do you do japa regularly? Oh, no, sometimes. On special days I do. It's not for special days. Only on special days you eat food. We eat food every day at regular time. But when it comes to spiritual practices, we don't do. And then we say, complain, oh, I'm not getting any benefit from spiritual practices. It should be, the spiritual food should be given to the body, to our mind regularly. Just as we give physical food to the body regularly, spiritual food should be given to the mind regularly. It should make it a habit. And through regular practice of spiritual discipline, the spiritual hunger will come, restlessness for God will come. Then we will be able to weep for God. Sri Ramakrishna says, people shed jugfuls of tears for their family, husband, wife, children, money, but who weeps for God? Can we, when in the beginning of the gospel, you can see when M asked, how can you realize God? Sri Ramakrishna says, can you weep for God? If you can weep for God, then you have got that restlessness. Then you will get God's grace. And he showed that through his life, how it weep for God. During the early days when before he had the vision of Divine Mother Kali, he used to practice so much of japa and meditation, still he was not having the vision. So he used to cry, Mother, another day has gone in the evening. Another day has gone, still I haven't had your vision. And he used to, in his agony, he said he used to rub his face on the ground and weep. And one day he was so desperate. Days are going and not having the vision of God, vision of Mother Kali. And in the temple of Mother Kali in Dakshin Asia, there's the Kali's sword hanging on the wall. He took it and was about to put an end to his life when suddenly he had the vision of God. That is the earning we need. Only then we get God realization. How can one attain yoga? Sri Ramakrishna is continuing. By completely renouncing attachment to things of the world. The mind must be pure and without blemish, like the telegraph wire that has no defect. The mind must be pure. And how do we make the mind pure? The Upanishad says, Ahar Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhi, Sattva Shuddhau Dhrita Smriti, Smriti Lambhe Sarva Grandhinam Vipramokshaha. Ahara Shuddho Sattva Shuddhi. When ahara, food, is pure, mind becomes pure. And when the mind is pure, memory becomes steady. That is, we remember our spiritual nature and gradually becomes established in spiritual consciousness. This destroys the knots of the heart and leads to emancipation. What does the Upanishad say by saying pure food? Means what, vegetarian food? Eating vegetarian food is the criteria. We can eat vegetarian food and have completely a wicked person, a thief, a cheat, a murderer. No, ahara shuddhi means all the imperception, all all the impulses that we get through all the sense organs, that should be pure. That is, pure means free from attachment, aversion, and delusion. Whatever we see, whatever we hear, whatever we smell, everything, without attachment, aversion, and pure. Then the heart becomes pure. When all the impressions that we get in through the sense organs are pure, then our mind becomes pure. And when the mind becomes pure, the memory becomes steady. That is, we remember our real nature, our spiritual, our divine nature. Swami Yatishwarananda, in his meditation and spiritual life, he describes, we all have seen the statue of the three monkeys. See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, closing the eyes, both ears, and closing the mouth. He says, while he was in Switzerland, walking near a lake, on the bank of the lake, he saw the statue of the three monkeys, but with a difference. The three monkeys are there sitting next to each other, but one difference is that only one eye is closed, one ear is closed, and half the mouth is closed. And Swami was curious, why? Why is this? Then suddenly he realized, oh, it means do not see evil, see only good. Do not hear evil, hear only good. Do not speak evil, speak only good. It's just the idea of the Upanishadic prayer, the Vedic prayer we have, Bhadram karne shruniyama deva, Bhadram pashyam akshapar ejatraha. May we hear what is auspicious. May we see what is auspicious. We don't want to hear what is inauspicious, what is evil. We want to hear, may we hear only what is good, auspicious things. May we see only what is good. So all these impressions coming inside, these are all ahara. When this becomes pure, our mind becomes pure. One must not cherish, Sri Ramakrishna is continuing, one must not cherish any desire whatever. The devotion of a man who has any desire is selfish. But desireless devotion is love for its own sake. You may love me or not, but I love you. This is love for its own sake. One must not cherish any desire whatever. Well, without desire, how can we live? Even Sri Ramakrishna says he had desire. He wanted to eat some sweet meats. So he had a desire. When he says desire, selfish desires, worldly desires, don't have worldly desires, selfish desires, the desires which do harm to other people. No, don't have such desires. Then that will be an obstacle on the spiritual path. Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I am desire which is unopposed to dharma. Desire within the limits of dharma is all right. But desires which are selfish desires, which are desires which are harmful for others, we should not have. Ordinary people, when they pray to God, usually their prayer is petitionary. Oh, God, please give me this, give me that. Or cure this disease. Everything we want, all selfish desires. Of course, we get the results of those desires. As Sri Krishna says in the Gita, 4 types of people pray to me. Artho jitnyasu artharthi jnani. Those who are in distress, those who seekers of knowledge, seekers of wealth, and the wise person. So he is putting even those people who are seekers of wealth and desire, and those who are in distress, all putting as his devotees. But the category is different. They are on the lowest. Though they are praying to God, of course, they're for their selfish ends. It's fine. The thing is, even though they are having selfish desires, gradually following that, slowly, the mind will become pure and they will be free from worldly desires, selfish desires, and they will have pure desire for God realization. The desireless devotion is love for its own sake. And he explains what is meant by love for its own sake. You may love me or not, but I love you. Whether you like me or not, whether you love me or not, doesn't matter. I love you. When Narendra used to come to Dakshineshwar, to Sri Ramakrishna will just ignore all the other people who are sitting in his room and speak only to Narendra. And the others even used to make fun. When Narendra comes, what are we? We are just, nobody's here. But then one day it happened, Narendra came, Sri Ramakrishna turned his face away. So Narendra asked some questions, Sri Ramakrishna ignored him, didn't answer. He kept quiet. Narendra sat there for some time. No, Sri Ramakrishna is not talking. So he went outside, went out of the room, and then Sri Ramakrishna started talking with other devotees. Narendra came back into the room, again keep quiet. This behavior continued for a month. But Narendra kept coming. He will come as usual, sit there for some time, and spend the day coming now and then to Sri Ramakrishna's room and spend the time with other devotees, and then go back in the evening. After about a month, Sri Ramakrishna one day asked, why do you come? I don't talk to you. I don't even look at you. Why do you come here? Then Narendra said, I don't come to listen to you. I come because I love you. That is the real love. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says. You may love me or not, but I love you. This is love for its own sake. The thing is that one must love God. Through intense love, one attains the vision of Him. And what is that intense love? Sri Ramakrishna explains further. The attraction of the husband for a chaste wife, the attraction of the child for its mother, the attraction of worldly possessions for the worldly man. When a man can blend these 3 into one and direct it all to God, then he gets the vision of God. The attraction of the husband for a chaste wife. The attraction of the child for its mother. When the child is away from its mother, it cries for its mother. He doesn't want, how we may try to stop the child's cry by giving some sweets or chocolate or toys. No, the child will come saying, I want to go to my mother. And a stranger comes and say, come, I'll take you to mother. Of course, the child will go. All it wants is its mother. That's why attraction of the child for its mother. Attraction of the worldly possessions for the worldly man. A miser, how much attached he is to his wealth. There's a story, a multimillionaire, there was a bank stock market crash or something, and he lost a lot of wealth. And he was told by his bank that he has got only few millions in his bank account. What? Only 3 million, what shall I do? And the story goes that he fell down dead. So much of attachment, he could not take the loss of the rest of the wealth. Not that he has become pauper, not that he doesn't have anything to eat. No, so much of attachment. The attraction of the worldly possession for the worldly man. When a man can blend these three into one and direct it all to God, then he gets the vision of God. See, all these three attractions. The husband's attraction for the wife, chaste wife, the attraction of the child for its mother, and attraction of worldly possession for the worldly man. Put all these three together and turn to God. Then you will realize God. How much yearning we should have. It's not so easy. Jayagopal was a man of the world. Was this why the master gave him instructions suited to him? At 8 o'clock that evening, the master was sitting in his room with Raghal and Yam. It was the 21st day of Yam's stay with Sri Ramakrishna. We have seen the previous chapter how Yam had come to stay with Sri Ramakrishna for a few days and spend his time in spiritual practices, following under the guidance of Sri Ramakrishna, doing Indian spiritual practices. So this is 21st day. And in between we have seen once Sri Ramakrishna was going to Calcutta and Yam wanted to go with him. Master asked, why do you want to go? Well, he said, I want to go to the home to deal with something. He thought for a minute and said, no, do you really have to go? No, Master did not want him to go because it will be break. It's a continuous chain of spiritual practices going on. It will be a break. And then that is retard his spiritual progress, which now he's going on, almost reaching the goal. So Sri Ramakrishna didn't want him to have that break. The master had forbidden him to indulge in reasoning. From the 2-3 times we see during his stay here, Sri Ramakrishna has asked him again and again, don't indulge in too much of reasoning, Master, to Raghal. It is not good to reason too much. First comes God and then the world. Realize God first, then you will know all about his world. Don't reason too much. It's not that Sri Ramakrishna is against reasoning. It's not that he is asking people not to reason. Just blindly, without reasoning, without blindly believe, no. It depends upon the temperament of the person. He is educated in the English, had English education. He had actually 2 master's degrees, and he really enjoyed the reasoning of the Western philosophers. So he used to reason a lot. Now Sri Ramakrishna is asking him not to reason, because too much of reasoning becomes an obstacle on the spiritual path. Shankaracharya says, Shabdajalam Maharanyam Chitta Brahmana Karanam. The scriptures consisting of many words are a dense forest, which merely causes the mind to ramble. We argue and debate and reason, but you're going round and round in the same place. You're not. In the beginning, of course, you had to hear about the spiritual truths, think about it, reason about it, and then assimilate it. They say, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. First, hear about it. Hear the great truths which are given in the scriptures. Then think about it, reason about it, cogitate in the mind, and then go to the next step, assimilate it, put it into practice. Again, Shankaracharya says, a disease is not cured by merely uttering the name of the medicine without taking it. Similarly, without direct realization, one cannot be liberated by the mere utterance of the word Brahman. Reasoning is just saying, oh, Brahman alone is real. Brahman alone is real. You repeat 100 times, you are not realizing that Brahman alone is real. We have to put it into practice, those teaching, the disciplines there that the great teachers have asked us to do. Otherwise, just repeating the words not going to solve any problem and give us any progress in the spiritual path. Yam had this tendency to reason so much. Well, in the beginning, there was need for reasoning, but now he had learned the spiritual truths. Now it's time for him to put it into practice and assimilate it, to realize God. He has to practice and go forward. That is why Sri Ramakrishna is asking Yam not to indulge in too much reasoning. It's not that Sri Ramakrishna discouraged reasoning. We can see later in the gospel itself, we can see how much he encouraged Narendra and Girish Chandra Ghosh and Narendra in engaging in arguments and reasoning. Once they were, Narendra and Girish were arguing, and Ramchandra Datta, another devotee, said, what's the point of this argument? Then Sri Ramakrishna said, no, it has got a meaning. It's necessary. But as far as M is concerned, he has gone past, and his temperament is not that. He is devotional temperament. So Sri Ramakrishna is asking again and again, no, don't indulge in reasoning. Realize God first. Then you will know all about God. Just simply reasoning, God is, these are the qualities of God, these are the way to realize God. Read 100 times, you won't realize. As Shankaracharya says, uttering the name of the medicine won't cure your illness. We may say AstraZeneca 100 times or Pfizer 100 times. Unless you take the vaccination, it's not going to help us. We know that now. Reasoning is like that. You are simply, as Shankaracharya says, going around in the using words. And he, in another verse in the Vivek Chudamani, says, that's all for the enjoyment of the scholars. It won't lead to self-realization. Reasoning has its place, but that's not the final end. It's not the goal. First, realize God first. Then you will know all about his world. For this reason, Rishi Narada advised Valmiki to repeat the word Mara. Ma means God, Ra means the world. First comes God, then the world. Therefore, like Valmiki, one should at first renounce everything and Cry to God in solitude with a longing heart. The first thing necessary is vision of God. Then comes reasoning about the scriptures and the world. First, renounce everything. Renounce all selfish attachment, all selfish desires, and cry to God in solitude. Solitude is very important for a spiritual seeker because in solitude, you will be able to concentrate the mind a lot quicker, in a better way. So here Sri Ramakrishna says, renounce everything, renounce all worldly attachment and selfish desires. Cry to God in solitude with a longing heart. These are the necessary conditions. The first thing necessary is vision of God. Then comes reasoning. That is why I have been telling you, that's Sri Ramakrishna is telling him, that is why I have been telling you not to reason anymore. Through too much reasoning, your spiritual life will be injured. See how careful the Guru is in guiding the disciple. Through too much reasoning, your spiritual life will be injured. You will become at last like Hazara. Tell me that you won't reason anymore? Yes, sir. I won't reason anymore. Master, everything can be achieved through bhakti alone. Those who want knowledge of Brahman will certainly achieve that also by following the trail of bhakti. Because M is of the of devotional temperament, so Sri Ramakrishna gives advice according to the need of the disciple, the devotee. Through bhakti alone, everything can be achieved. And even the knowledge of Brahman can be achieved through bhakti, Sri Ramakrishna says. Because once you realize God, if you pray to God for knowledge of Brahman, He will grant that also. Can a man blessed with the grace of God ever lack knowledge? At Kamarpur, I have seen the grain dealers measuring paddy. As one heap is measured away, another heap is pushed forward to be measured. So always the supply comes from behind. The mother supplies the devotees with heap of knowledge. Whatever you need, the Divine Mother, God will provide that knowledge at that time. Everything can be realized simply through love of God. If one is able to love God, one does not lack anything. Let's stop here and we'll continue in the next month. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for joining us this morning for the talk live via Zoom. We've recorded the talk, so it will be uploaded to the Vedanta Society of New South Wales YouTube channel later today. We're still under lockdown in Sydney. Our next event will be the fortnightly Bhagavad Gita class this coming Friday the 9th, and we will still be under lockdown then, so you can join that, but only via Zoom. Hopefully, all being well, next Sunday, we have the continuing series Dialogue with Death, drawing on the Katha Upanishad. And hopefully by then the lockdown would have been lifted. We will be having a maximum of 25 people allowed in the Vedanta hall in that case, and everybody should be wearing masks, and of course the usual use the QR code or the booklet to sign in when you enter. And the topic for Sridhara Pranaji's talk next Sunday is the journey of life. And that's, like I said, another talk in the series Dialogue with Death. We're making our way through the Katha Upanishad, so she'll be starting on chapter 3 in next Sunday's talk, and that'll be accompanied by a PowerPoint presentation as well. Now we will conclude with listening to a guided meditation by revered Prabhajika Ajay Prana Mataji. So just give me a moment and I'll switch over to that.
Oh Lord, may my mind be so cleansed and strengthened that it may respond to the great mind of the universe. May my heart be in tune with the heart of the universe. May His power and glory be manifest in my life. May His grace surround me and inspire me in all my actions. May I be shielded from all pettiness and littleness, and may I be made worthy of His love and blessing. Help me to open my heart that I may feel His divine inspiration in me and others. Please make my thought free from all distractions, my sight clear, that I may perceive His holy presence in everything and everyone. Rouse my mind and soul and spiritual consciousness that I may manifest nobility and strength in all my actions. Closing your eyes, sit straight. Turn your inner eye towards your spiritual heart. See the light of the world shining therein. When we can't see, it means we are not looking properly. It is there, shining always, whether we look towards it or not, whether we are sleeping or awake, shining bright and clear. We can visualize it as a wonderful flame. In fact, it has no shape. It's just light, a beautiful light, which, as the great texts say, does not need any fuel to burn, does not send out smoke, does not cast any shadow of anything, penetrates and interpenetrates everything. Very powerful, but not piercingly hot. It's cool, bright, but not dazzlingly bright. It's a wonderful glow, ever shining in our heart. For convenience, we can picture it as a beautifully shaped flame. Now, if we try and concentrate on that flame, fully believing that it is there, we can see it shining in the center of our heart. There it is, a beautiful flame, shining in the center of our heart. It belongs to us. Nobody can cover it. Nobody can steal it. Nobody can share it. It's my own. It belongs to me. but it is the light of the universe. It is the condensed form of the life energy of the universe. I carry it wherever I go. I can turn to it when I need help, when I need power, when I need energy. Concentrate on that flame and see that, feel it, that tiny currents of energy are flowing out from that very tiny, feeble, all around. In the center, the beautiful flame is there, and from that, tiny currents of energy are flowing out into all parts of the heart. Tiny little glow from the heart. It flows into all parts of the body, into the arms, into the legs, into the trunk of the body, into the head. Just feel that the whole body is filled with a tiny glow, a beautiful feeling of a glow all over inside the body, with the flame shining in the center of the heart. The glow comes out and covers the whole body outside, covers the skin with a thin film of radiance. Just hold the body. Let us try to hold the body in this state of perfect equilibrium. There is the flame of beauty, radiance, joy, and power in the center of the heart. The tiny glow of its radiance coming out of the flame, filling the heart and overflowing into the body, has come out and spread all over the skin as a thin film of radiance. We are immersed in the bliss of God. We are surrounded by the power of God. We are filled with the radiance of God's beauty. We are carrying the condensed form of the life energy of the universe. Just let us hold ourselves in this state for some time. Hari Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace.